This is day 5 of the US-Israel war on Iran, and the most significant development of the past 24 hours has nothing to do with bombs or missiles. It has to do with words, specifically which words are being said publicly, which are being said privately, and how far apart those two sets of words actually are. Here is what is confirmed. Iran's intelligence ministry reached out through back-channel contacts to the CIA shortly after the initial strikes began last weekend. According to reporting by the New York Times and Bloomberg, the outreach signaled a potential willingness on Tehran's part to discuss terms for ending the conflict. The US officials who received that signal described it not as a serious ceasefire offer, but as tentative probing, so an exploratory move designed to test whether Washington was open to a conversation at all. Israel, for its part, urged Washington to ignore it entirely. Then there is Ali Larijani. He is currently the most powerful surviving official in Iran, serving as Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, and his position on negotiations is being stated loudly and publicly. He posted on X that Tehran will not negotiate with the United States and accused Trump of betraying what he called America first in favor of Israel first. That is the official public line. But the Wall Street Journal reported separately that Larijani himself quietly reached out through Omani mediators to explore the possibility of resuming nuclear talks, the very same diplomatic channel that was active before the bombs fell. Larijani flatly denied the journal's report on social media. So on the same day, the most powerful man in Iran simultaneously denied talks were happening and was reportedly the one initiating them. This is not confusion. This is how Iran's leadership has historically operated, projecting domestic strength publicly while keeping diplomatic doors discreetly open behind the scenes. Trump's own position has been no less contradictory. In an interview with The Atlantic magazine, Trump said Iran's new leadership wanted to resume negotiations and that he had agreed to talk. Then, hours later, in a separate social media post, Trump wrote that Iran's air defense, air force, navy and leadership were gone, adding the words "too late." So within the same news cycle, the President of the United States said he agreed to talk to Iran and then said it was too late to talk. Neither statement has been formally walked back. To understand why this diplomatic confusion matters so much, you need to understand the state of Iran's internal governance right now. Khamenei ruled for 34 years. He held absolute authority. Every major decision, military, nuclear, diplomatic, economic, ultimately required his approval or his veto. That structure is now gone. In its place is a 3-member interim leadership council constituted under Article 111 of Iran's constitution, comprising President Masoud Pezeshkian, Supreme Court Chief Justice Gholam Hossein Mohseni Ejei, and Guardian Council member Ayatollah Ali Reza Arafi. This council was assembled within 24 hours of Khamenei's death. It is a constitutional emergency measure, not a governing power center. The real question of who holds authority in Iran right now does not have a clear answer, and that ambiguity directly affects every dimension of this conflict: military decision-making, retaliation planning, and any potential path to negotiation. CIA assessments presented to the White House before the strikes began concluded that if Khamenei were killed, the most likely successors would be hardline IRGC figures or equally hardline clerics, not reformers. That assessment appears to be playing out. The IRGC, which controls Iran's missile forces and proxy networks, has continued launching strikes despite the death of the supreme leader. There has been no pause, no hesitation, and no visible chain of command disruption in Iran's military operations. Whatever leadership vacuum exists at the political level, it has not translated into operational paralysis on the battlefield. Daniel Brumberg of the Arab Center, Washington, D.C., put it plainly in an assessment circulated to U.S. officials this week. He said the two most likely outcomes for Iran are the imposition of an even more ruthless regime controlled by the security apparatus or a fragmentation of the country. Neither outcome is the democratic transition that Netanyahu publicly described as the war's goal when he told Fox News that Operation Epic Fury would create conditions for the Iranian people to form their own democratically elected government. That goal has no military metric, no measurable endpoint, and no timeline. It is a political aspiration dressed up as a military objective, and the gap between the two is where this war could either end or expand indefinitely. On the battlefield, US and Israeli strikes continued through the night of March 3rd and into March 4th. Residents of Tehran reported multiple explosions overnight. Israel confirmed it struck Iran's state broadcaster headquarters for the second time since the war began, along with additional missile storage facilities. Iran's head of state broadcasting, Peyman Jebeli, confirmed the attack on state television, but said broadcasting was continuing normally due to precautionary measures the network had taken in advance. Iran continued drone and missile launches against targets in Iraq, where loud explosions were reported near Erbil International Airport in Iraq's Kurdish region, which hosts US military bases. The US facility near Baghdad International Airport was struck again. Iran-aligned militia groups operating under the name Guardians of the Blood Brigade claimed responsibility. In Lebanon, Israel's military chief, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, stated on Tuesday that Israeli forces would keep attacking Hezbollah until the group was fully disarmed. Israeli ground forces continued pushing into southern Lebanon. Hezbollah has been firing rockets into northern Israel daily since entering the conflict on Sunday, following Khamenei's killing. This is now an active, multi-front ground and air war, not an exchange of long-range missiles. The international diplomatic picture on day 5 is clarifying into distinct camps, and the lines are hardening. The E3, Britain, France and Germany resolved to back proportionate military defensive measures against Iranian drones and ballistic missiles if needed, signaling potential direct European involvement in the conflict's defensive dimension. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer confirmed the US could use British military bases for defensive strikes on Iran. Starmer also disclosed that Ukrainian specialists and personnel from other countries were actively aiding Gulf states in defeating Iranian drone attacks. That detail is significant. Ukraine, which has spent 3 years absorbing Russian drone warfare, has developed real operational expertise in drone interception and electronic countermeasures. Its personnel are now applying that expertise in the skies over the Gulf. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, backed by Washington, vowed to use military force against any further Iranian incursions into Saudi territory, calling Iran's strikes cowardly, given that Saudi airspace was being used by US and Israeli attack aircraft. Saudi Arabia has not yet conducted offensive strikes against Iran, but that statement represents a significant shift in posture from a country that has spent years trying to normalize relations with Tehran. China's position is the most strategically important of any outside power. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told his Russian counterpart that it was unacceptable for the US and Israel to attack Iran or to assassinate a head of state. Beijing called for an immediate ceasefire and a return to dialogue, but China has not taken any concrete action. It has not moved military assets, has not cut off diplomatic engagement with the US, and has not made any move that would impose a real cost on Washington for the strikes. China's posture is one of public condemnation and private inaction. Analysts note this actually serves China's interests. A weakened Iran becomes more dependent on Beijing, giving China greater leverage over Iranian oil and regional influence without China firing a single shot or spending a single dollar. Russia's Vladimir Putin condemned Khamenei's killing as a violation of all norms of international morality. The Russian Foreign Ministry called for an immediate return to political and diplomatic tracks. Like China, Russia has not taken any material action beyond statements. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres described the US and Israeli strikes as squandering a diplomatic opportunity and cited Article 2 of the UN Charter, which prohibits the use of force against the territorial integrity of any state. The UN Security Council held an emergency session on February 28th, but has passed no resolution and taken no vote. With the US holding veto power, no binding Security Council action is possible. Here is the strategic picture as it stands at the close of day 5. The war is being fought on multiple levels simultaneously, militarily in Iran, Lebanon, Iraq and the Gulf, diplomatically in Washington, Muscat, Beijing, London and Paris, politically inside Iran, where the question of succession remains genuinely unresolved, and legally in Congress, where the constitutional challenge to Trump's authority to launch the war without approval continues to build. The back channel from Tehran to the CIA, if genuine, represents the first potential opening. But Iran's public posture of refusing negotiations directly contradicts it. The US response, simultaneously agreeing to talk and declaring it too late to talk, reflects either deliberate strategic ambiguity or a White House that has not yet decided what it actually wants from this war beyond the continued degradation of Iran's military capacity.